Every photographer who inspires me across any genre of photography, whether it's landscape, street, portrait, documentary, like it doesn't matter what they're shooting, the subject is irrelevant in this part of the conversation. If they do inspire me, it is because they are masters of composition. Composition feels like one of those things on the surface that would be subjective. So maybe like what you would prefer in a composition might be different than what I would prefer in a composition. But I'm not so convinced that composition really is subjective. I think there are some objective rules, some things that we can follow, guidelines even, that would help us have better compositions. And this is not dependent on the gear that you are using or the aspect ratio of what you're shooting on, whether you're shooting on just a normal digital camera or you're shooting on like a medium format, square, like it doesn't matter. These rules, these objective things, I think they do play a role in what makes composition good. I'll go as far as to say is I think what separates like good photographers from bad photographers, that's super subjective, but just follow the illustration here. What separates a good photographer from a bad photographer is probably how they compose, because compositions make us feel a certain way. And if we can learn to work a composition in a way that's going to result in us feeling like objectively good, then I think we're gonna make better photos. And that's what today's video is going to be about. I'm gonna share with you guys some of my personal guidelines, like the way that I approach composition, the things that I'm thinking about, and things that I've picked up over the years, and I think make compositions just feel good. So these are the things that I'm thinking about when I go out to shoot. This first thing, it feels almost not like good advice. It's funny to say that. Traditionally, when you're making a composition or you're reading like books, like I've got this old Kodak, hold on a second. I've got this old Kodak book of photography that I found at a used bookstore for $6.99. I was actually looking at this book before starting this video because they have a whole chapter, a whole section of the book about correct composition. Talk about making something objective. Oh yeah, we should totally check this section out in another video, right? Photographing the nude. Not today. Okay, in this book from like pages like 42 for about 5 or 6 pages talk about composition. And there was a section in here that I've heard so many times over the years. You gotta have a nice like foreground, a midground, and the background. Like here you go right here. That's a great shot. I mean, foreground, midground, background, we got it all. And objectively, that might be correct, but I've got a different idea. When I'm getting into a composition, I'm not so much thinking about those layers from front to back. I'm really thinking about the space between the top and the bottom. And in this first guideline, I'm thinking way more about the top than I'm thinking about the bottom. Photos elicit feelings. I think we can all agree on that. Those feelings can come from the subject or like what you are looking at. But there's also like some internal feelings. I think one of the comments that I hear a lot in landscape and like travel photography is like that photo feels really peaceful. Or maybe there's some photos that you've seen that just elicit this like sense of airiness and lightness to it. I 100% believe that comes from the top of the photo. Whenever I'm making a composition, I try to keep the top half pretty like basic or even empty. Like if it's a landscape, I like a pretty decent amount of sky. I'm not one of those people that are going to like have it all be sky, but I do like a pretty decent amount of sky because it communicates airiness and lightness and peace. Oftentimes I see this like adventure photography style with photographers that are trying so hard to hit that foreground, midground, background layering that they neglect like the peace that comes from having a lot of air in the sky at the top. A good example of the opposite of this is like this painting that I have back here. I got this painting from some random young lady that I met in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. She wanted a portrait session and she offered this painting for it. She was just traveling home from like working at a ranch. And I said, sure. So I took these photos of her and she gave me this painting that she had brought home from the ranch. Felt like a good trade. I love a good barter, so that was kind of fun. This painting is not meant to be light and airy. In fact, it has very little sky. It's actually a pretty tense scene. There's action here. It's not meant to make you feel light and airy. It's meant to feel like conflict and action. If this painting was like half sky, I think it would feel totally different and not how the original painter intended it to feel. If you go and look at my work across like any genre that I've done, you're going to see a lot more emptiness in the top half of the photo because I do think that it communicates a lightness, an airiness, a peacefulness in those photos. So I'm always considering the top and the bottom and giving a lot of attention to the top of a composition. Hey, I hope you're liking this information so far. I know we're only like 1 point into this, but I just wanted to take a minute and invite you to become a subscriber of this channel if you aren't already. The community around this channel, it just blows my mind all the time. We have like 90,000 unique viewers in the last 28 days, over 1,000 people on the Discord encouraging each other, sharing photography with each other, speaking life to each other. And then I try to be fully accessible. If you reach out to me, you're gonna hear back from me. So again, if you're not a subscriber, go ahead, hit that subscribe, hit that QR code. If you're on your TV, it takes you right to it, super easy. As we're talking about feeling, this is gonna kick us into our second guideline here that I'm thinking about when I'm shooting. And that's that rudimentary shapes are zen. Shapes can help create a sense of balance and harmony. They can also draw attention to certain parts of the frame. So let me just give you a quick example here. Like, let's talk about triangles for a minute. Triangles in photography are absolutely beautiful. If you like shooting mountains, it might be because you find triangles beautiful and they work really well in photography. So you go and you take photos of mountains and guess what? Your photos work because they're triangles and triangles are beautiful. I thought I'd demonstrate it like this too. You guys remember that movie Napoleon Dynamite? Remember Uncle Rico? You know, you get the hand under here. This is one look. This is like circles, stacked circles here. It doesn't look good, but let's create a triangle, you know, like if I do this. This is really ridiculous. But like if I create a triangle here, see this triangle right here? This look is better than this look. Triangles. Look at any good portrait photography and you're going to see triangles because portraits and triangles go hand in hand. So triangles help make beautiful compositions, but let's not just like, you know, love on the triangles. Let's talk about also like squares and rectangles and other rudimentary shapes. I've got a lot of photos from the Northern Plains. It's this project that I'm working on, kind of documenting these last standing buildings and some of the last people in these really tiny towns across like Nebraska, Wyoming, the Dakotas, and eastern Montana. And I'm dealing with a lot of squares and rectangles and triangles in this entire project. Those squares and rectangles, they definitely require us to think through balancing in our compositions, how we distribute the weight across an image. You know, if it's heavy on one side and light on the other, or if we try to balance and offset that weight with a bigger side and a smaller side. Point is that like while triangles are really beautiful, anything with a right angle requires processing weight. And the same can be said of like circles and ovals. Like take this photo for example, because the tree is kind of playing the role of a circle and then there's another one kind of playing the role of a circle. And we're mixing some different shapes here, but this composition with that negative space of the sky really works for me. This is one of my favorite photos from the project. And even if we think about like the most basic shape, like just a line, vertical lines should be vertical, horizontal lines should be horizontal. Taking time to level your photo, make sure your lines are all straight. Like that increases the feeling, the good vibes, and the zen of your compositions. If you start getting too many complicated shapes in like one composition, that's when you really start to make it really busy. And then that busyness, it can work for you if it's meant to be chaotic and uncomfortable and unsettling. But if you're going after zen, then what you want to do is embrace those rudimentary shapes and keep it nice and simple. So if composition really matters to you and you want to grow in this topic, I've got 3 workshops coming up later this year. They are all linked right below. 2 of them are in Jackson Hole, 1 is in Zion. What we're doing in today's video is kind of just scratching the surface of all these conversations, but if you want to go deeper and if it's something that you think would add value to your photography, check out shopverygood.com/workshops or just hit the QR code right here on the side of the screen. Workshops have a limited number of participants, and one of the weeks in the Tetons is almost full, so be sure to get on those sooner than later if that is something that would add value to your photography. And of course, if you have any questions about my workshops, feel free to just hit me below. There's a lot of ways to contact me. They're all right there, right below, or at this QR code. Now, the most important part of a composition is obviously the subject, because it is the subject that is telling the story of your photo. And everything else in the photo is like the supporting figure, the supporting actor. It just supports the story of the subject. And if you were to follow that philosophy to its conclusion, that what you have chosen as the subject is the part of the photo that matters the most in the composition, then a lot of things become secondary that you and I might struggle to be okay with. Quick example of that is the idea of critical focus. If your composition is correct to the things you're trying to say and your subject is where you want it to be in that composition, then critical focus is kind of secondary. Like, something can be soft or even missed focus and still be an incredible photo. Like, I got this shot here at a rodeo, and at first, I didn't have it included in the selections for the project I'm working on, but I just couldn't shake it. I love the composition, I love the moment. I hate that I miss focus, but focus is secondary. And to really prove that, I've included it in the body of work that I've been creating. I'll tell you another thing that is secondary that might even be controversial, because I get asked this a lot, especially recently with Leica's release of their new 35 Noctilux. A lot of people have messaged me asking if this is a lens that I'm going to get or review or test out. My answer has always just been it is so rare that I would shoot at 1.2 that it's not the juice is not worth the squeeze. The business expense is not worth the extra stop from my Summilux at 1.4. I think it's an incredible lens for people that would need 1.2. I'm just not one of those people that need 1.2. And where I'm going with all this is that if critical focus is secondary, background separation is also secondary. I would say in the past 2 years, most of my photography is 5.6 on the low end to f8 is probably more of what I'm normally doing. I had this short form content, I freaking hate the word content, but I had this reel and short here on YouTube kind of pop off, and I was talking about street photography in it, and I shared, I go f8, and I had so many comments f8, why don't you just use your iPhone? Why don't you choose a point and shoot? Sure, I get it. F8 doesn't have a ton of background separation, but does background separation really matter that much in a good composition? No, it's secondary. The real news here is that f1.2, it's not gonna save your story. Or that film grain in Portra 400, that's not gonna save your story. No new camera, no specialty lens, nothing is going to save your story. Your story will be told by your composition. I keep these guidelines in mind no matter what I'm doing, however I'm photographing, whether I'm shooting in North Beach, in San Francisco, walking around doing street photography, or I'm shooting some cityscapes, or I'm up in the mountains, or I'm on the northern plains. It doesn't matter. These same guidelines are influencing every photo that I take. And I fully believe that these are objective things that we can get better at, we can become masters of, and we can have better photography because of it. And I'd love to hear what you think as well. So whether you agree or disagree, drop a comment below and let me know your composition tips, your guidelines, or if you feel like the ones that I've shared today would have an impact on your photography. And again, I invite you to check out those workshops below. There's also a ton of links below that go to a lot of things, including ways to support this channel. Again, all linked below, all on this QR code. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, be sure to give it a like. If you are not a subscriber, be sure to get subscribed. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.